So with this win Saturday, do you think that'll pull Alabama out of the slight darkness they were in these past couple of weeks? I don't know. We'll see.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA Radio Network. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein's Bama Online, or Bama Online's Jimmy Stein or something. It rhymes. He's with him. He's with them. Thank you for making this your first listen every single day. You guys are the best. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and I'll tell you about FanDuel in just a bit. Jimmy, I got to thinking, Alabama's been in kind of a lull since halftime of Georgia, and maybe that lull lasted until halftime of Missouri. Maybe the lull is over, and maybe this team is putting it together a little bit. When you have a regime change like this, there's always a moment for the good coaches and good teams, right? A moment where you're like, okay, this thing's going to start taking off and getting better. Been a lot of naysayers, because that's a very popular word around Alabama right now. Been a lot of naysayers out there. And I understand where they're coming from over the past few weeks, and from the second half of Georgia through the first half this week. But maybe it's going to start coming together a little more. I mean, we got to see Jalen Milroe take off on a scramble, and it feels like he hadn't done that in a long time.
Seasons are two rides. At the fair. This is fair season. It's fair, and we're in fair country here in the South. There's two different rides. There's the roller coaster and there's the merry-go-round. And I think too many think football teams or seasons are like merry-go-rounds, that it's all the same. The merry-go-round, it never changes. It just goes round and round and round, and nothing ever changes. And what you are is what you are. Hey, what you are is how you're going to look for 60 minutes for 12 games. It couldn't be further from the truth. The actual truth is, for virtually every team, maybe not everyone, but virtually every team, a season is a roller coaster ride. It is, you're playing your best football, then you're playing your worst football, and then you play better again. And some have multiple dips over a course of a season. Hopefully what Alabama's done is they've had sort of their one dip, and now they're on the way back. Hopefully that will prove to be the case. But I think it's typical of all college football teams to have a portion of the season where they play great and a portion of the season where they're not playing well. And I think that's probably what we've got here. I would just take issue a little bit with, I know the second half of the Georgia game, the score was wonky because Georgia sort of whooped up on Alabama for a lot of that second half. But I just point to, hey, that's Georgia, and that's going to happen no matter who you are. Alabama won the football game, and I know there were periods of the game that Georgia was on top. But in the end, Alabama won, and I'm just never going to consider the second half of that Georgia game a slump so much as I'm going to consider it the inevitable Georgia comeback, because there's just a really good football team that might win the national championship. But I do agree with what you're saying, that maybe Alabama has turned it around here this week. I think there's not enough talk about how good Missouri is for. As a matter of fact, I keep hearing the opposite. I keep reading. I read a lot of our BOL board today, and it's like, well, they're not a very good opponent. What? I mean, this top 25, top 10 during some portions of the season, preseason playoff team, dudes. I mean, they got several dudes. Now, I know Brady Cook's hurt, but like Tim Watts is saying, so true. It's like Tim Watts, like, when did Brady Cook become Tom Brady to you guys?
Yeah.
I mean, statistically, even before he got hurt, he wasn't performing anywhere near the very best guys in the league, not nearly as good as Milroe or Dart or Ewers or Nuss or Diego Pavia, who might be playing as well as anybody in the league. But anyway, point is that is a good football team. Alabama made them look the way that they looked. That was Alabama.
Well, and they did beat Vanderbilt, and I know it's a team that didn't.
They did, and Auburn and Boston College. No, they haven't beat a lot of good teams, but look, Missouri's going to end the year, what, 8-4?
Probably. I mean, they're going to probably end it worse now. I mean, I don't know how long Cook's going to be out. I mean,
Right.
I've
I would say
seen some.
that's a good, legitimate, I would say top 25 football team.
Yeah, and okay. I think in 2011 we do beat them worse or whatever. I mean,
Probably.
okay,
Probably.
but it's a different time. And another thing that dawned on me today, and there's probably 1,000 people with 1,000 stats telling me how wrong I am. For whatever reason, after watching a full day of NFL, and that's really one of my favorite things to do on Sunday mornings, is watch NFL. It feels like, every NFL game ends up being close somehow. I mean, the Bears and Commanders was a nutso game. The there was a bunch of them. Even like Kansas City and Raiders late had some drama in it. It's just like the college game is becoming more like that, where every game is going to be more of a grudge match. Yeah, there's going to be the occasional blowouts and all this, but look at Nebraska and Ohio State yesterday. I mean, Ohio State's got a lot more talent, and they're not starting as freshmen. Ohio State had to scratch and claw and kick and fight to get out of there with a win. And this is the same Nebraska team that got housed by Indiana the week before.
I was talking to a Mississippi State guy today, and we were talking about his roster and how they're a mess. We all know they're a mess, and it's their defense, which is just egregiously bad. I was telling him, in this age of the transfer portal, how different would Mississippi State look next year if this is all they did, if this is the sum total of what they did? If they signed 3 players from Georgia who were defensive players that all left Georgia because they can't get on the field at Georgia, and 3 players from Texas who were good defensive players, but they can't get on the field at Texas, so they're leaving for snaps, and 3 players from Alabama that just can't get on the field because there's too many good players ahead of them. If they signed 9 guys from Georgia, Texas, and Alabama who can't get on the field, how good is Mississippi State next year? I mean, they would automatically go from 0-8 in the league to, I would say, 2-6 or 3-5, just like that. And I think that's what you're talking about, Luke. I think it's just there's a lot more parity because teams can get better overnight, because what used to be the elite team's bench is now everybody else's starters. And there's just a lot of good players out there. Oh, mute.
I'm going to say this again. I don't love that. I don't love that.
You don't love it?
Am I muting? Or I don't love that you can get better overnight anymore. Because I think that's one thing that's great about college football is you did sort of have to build. And it did, and you could see it happening and see the development. And now it's either instant gratification or bust. And that's how it is in the NFL too. Something like Jacksonville's a pretty terrible team this year, and Green Bay's pretty good. Now, Green Bay ended up losing their quarterback for most of the game, but Green Bay had to fight and scratch and claw to win that game. It felt like they were in control. Next thing you know, they're in a dogfight. New York Jets have a much more experienced roster, and on paper a much better roster. They lose to the Patriots today, and it was just a game down to the wire. And I feel like more games are going to be like that. And again, that's fine, and it does create more drama. But it also is, boy, the expectations on coaches are even going to go higher because everybody's going to be like, why can't you turn it around in a year?
People will be so slow to fully accept the changes. People will be too slow to accept all the changes that have happened, and they'll always want to apply old ways of thinking to this new reality. And some people will be left behind over it. But this is a new age of not parity. It's not like saying it's not there, but it's getting there. It's striding in that direction. And Vanderbilt being a perfect example of what we're talking about. I mean, it's not one guy, but how much of it is one guy? I mean, what's the difference, Luke, if Diego Pavia signs with Auburn and not Vanderbilt? Is Auburn Vanderbilt, and Vanderbilt is still Vanderbilt? If that makes, what I'm saying? I mean, that's the portal. That's the portal creating parity there.
Man, if you did play some of the NFL today, you had a blast. You could have done it with FanDuel. because you can get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place your live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's only at FanDuel.com, which is, of course, America's #1 sportsbook. Now I'm going to tell you about Academy. I don't even
Our
know
friends. I say it every time. Our friends.
We're very close to them now. I went in the other day and they were like, do we know you, sir? And I was like, of course you do. But your new Academy Sports and Outdoor store is open in Birmingham with the best in sports equipment, outdoor gear, apparel, and footwear from the brands you love, all at low prices every day. We carry a wide selection of trusted brands like Nike, Stanley, Brooks, Carhartt, Blackstone, Yeti, Titleist, Shimano, and more. Academy has everything you need to gear up for fun camping, hunting, fishing, tailgating, running, exercising, and anything else you want to get into. Plus, you can shop online or on our app with free in-store pickup. You need it fast? They got a 1-hour curbside pickup, yo. You can load up and load out with ease or enjoy free shipping to your home on purchases over 25 smacks. Your new Academy Sports and Outdoor store is located at 4610 U.S. Highway 280, the place I love in Birmingham. So, one thing that, there's still a lot of people out there that don't believe Milroe improved. I clearly believe he improved. I do believe some of it was a product of maybe competition, whatever, even though Missouri's got some dudes on defense. But here's a stat that ought to tell you about his improvement. This comes from our friends over there at Bama Online. Milroe's quarterback rating went from 98 against Tennessee, 98.6 to be exact. So he played right at what his body temperature should be. And his QB rating went up to 131, which is essentially medium rare. So, yes, it's very good. He did much better.
Yeah, he did. He played better. And, I just watched. I'm doing my rewatch, and I'm not complete with it. But, Alabama was really hamstrung by – look, and this makes so much sense. Live at the game, it's that's why I like doing the rewatch. You can think more clearly when your emotions aren't all wrapped up in it. But, Alabama called the first part of the game really conservatively and didn't really ask Milroe to do much, and he wasn't running around much, and the offense wasn't really working. It's because Alabama was backed up. They had like 3 consecutive possessions all start inside the 10. And considering how mistake-prone the offense has been lately with the interceptions and the turnovers and the penalties, to me, in retrospect, it makes total sense for, hey, while we're backed up, here's what we're not going to do. Give the game away. The very first time Alabama got the ball and started a possession at their own 25, which is an awesome field position, but it's a heck of a lot better than inside your own 10. The first play was a drop back from Milroe, and he fired a 26-yard strike to Jeremy Bernard down the field, and it started a length of the field drive that ended in Nicholson's second field goal. But the point being, I think some of the play call and some of why Milroe, it took him a while to get going, was field position. And it makes sense based on how mistake-prone the team had been lately to be pretty conservative when you're backed up because, boy, one mistake inside the 10, and now you're behind, and now you're in a 60-minute game. And that's what's happened with Alabama lately when they playing against a team they outman and out-athlete. Once you let them in the game and give them a lead, now it's a 60-minute game because they never stop believing.
Actually, it's less than a 60-minute game. That's the thing about not putting the people away quickly. And again, I hate to keep referencing all these NFL games, but I watched a lot of that Washington-Chicago game because I'm a glutton for punishment or whatever. But it turned out to be awesome. And you could feel the momentum switch in that game because Washington kept settling for field goals, even though Chicago couldn't score a touchdown. When they finally scored a touchdown, it took one touchdown. And now it's 12-7 because Washington had 4 field goals. And Washington didn't score a touchdown to the final Hail Mary, which is pretty nutso. Anyway, that game was bananas. So
first and second pick against each other in that game, right?
yeah, pretty cool.
And I know little about it because today was a travel day for me, and when I wasn't traveling, I was doing the rewatch. So, who outperformed who in Caleb versus Jaden Daniels?
Jaden Daniels blew him away, really. I mean, Caleb, he didn't even have a touchdown. I don't think he only had like 100 and something yards and passing. But it's just the NFL is such that if you're only up 12-0 in the fourth quarter, that ain't enough.
That could be anybody's game. That could be anybody's game. Yeah,
right.
Jaden's been very incredible, frankly.
And we can talk about Bama in the NFL. We usually do that on the Tuesday pod, though. So, but I really do want to go back to the point of this perhaps being a phase. Maybe Alabama, we always talk about you play your best a couple times a year, you play your worst a couple times a year, and in between is what you actually are. And maybe we kind of, with the coaching change and all this going on and some uncertainty, maybe all that got grouped into this awkward teenager phase we had. We were fun adolescents. Then we got to be about 13 at the halftime of the Georgia game. We started getting pimples and, hair in places we hadn't had it before. And then the next thing you know, we're over here at Missouri, and now we're 21, baby, and we're looking pretty good.
I don't think we credited the team enough, Luke, for that win at Madison, Wisconsin. We were like, it's a Big Ten team. It's 11 in the morning. The quarterback got hurt. Wisconsin is a quality Power 4 football program with a lot of good players at line of scrimmage. They gave Penn State everything they wanted yesterday. They had won their previous 3 games, something like 99-13. I'm just saying, beating Wisconsin 42-10 in their place. I don't think at the time we appreciated enough how good of an effort that was to get that done. And I think that carried through the first half of Georgia and into the Georgia game. I think that was an uptick for Alabama, was Wisconsin and Georgia immediately started the downtick. Vanderbilt didn't play well versus South Carolina, didn't play well against Tennessee. But I will, again, I think as a whole, our fan base is like not looking at Tennessee correctly. I mean, in terms of how good to me, they're a playoff team. That was a playoff game on the road, no different than the first round of the college football playoffs. And Alabama led that game until 6 minutes remaining. And we talked about how absolutely awful, disastrous. And while it was bad, and Alabama did play bad, and Milroe played poorly, and Alabama didn't run the ball well enough or stop the run well enough, you were leading a playoff team on the road with 6 minutes to go. And that's what I mean by there's just too much negativity out there, in terms of what's bad. Alabama needs to play better, but it hasn't really been bad.
Well, I'm going to tell you, did somebody just turn on a bright light on your face?
No,
I mean, that's the whitest I've ever seen you, and you're almost too white for Downton Abbey.
That's one of your better lines. That's good. No, I don't know. I'm blaming it. I think I've got one of those ring lights that tries to adjust to and so the ring light adjusts whether I want it to or not.
I mean, if you were a vampire, that would have melted your face.
Well, clearly not a vampire.
Let me tell you why I think the schedule sets up really nicely.
Sure.
First of all, it sets up nicely because let's go ahead and get the drama out of the way. I know I just threw my pen. I know there's a path to our making the playoffs, even if we lose to LSU. I understand there is a remote path. There'll be some ESPN predictor of Alabama's got a 4.7% chance, blah, blah, blah. But I'd rather let's knock that game out. Let's go ahead and do it. Let's go ahead and get it over with. Let's go ahead and play it. And, if we win it, I'm going to feel really good about being in the playoffs. If we lose it, I'm going to feel terrible about not making the playoffs. So I'm glad we get that game right after the bye week. Let's do it. Yeah. Let's see what we got.
Played good out of the bye week. We played well out of the bye week the first time around.
So let's see what happens. Now, then after that, you got another sort of – so LSU is sandwiched between a bye week and sort of a game. I don't know how Mercer is this year. None of y'all do either, so don't worry about it.
Well, they're going to beat Mercer, but I think you can see that they're probably going to play terrible. Yeah. But even playing terrible, they're going to beat Mercer. It just might not be as pretty as people want because sandwiched between 2 road games and the season-defining game, you win, they're just going to blow off Mercer. You lose, they're going to sleepwalk through Mercer.
Yep.
I don't think that'll be a good performance, but it doesn't matter because they'll win somehow. So then off to Norman.
Then off to Norman, and again, not. I hate to call it an easy game, but you can see the wheels coming off of Oklahoma right now, and
they're good defensively. I don't know how they'll look in 3 weeks or whatever, but they're good on defense. I mean,
but here's the problem: they have a bye week before us. I didn't realize that.
Oh, really?
But they play Maine this upcoming week at home. They'll beat them, and then they play at Missouri. And I think, depending on if Cook's playing or not,
I think it could go either way.
Yeah, that could.
To me, that's an either way game. As a matter of fact, with Cook, I would favor Missouri. Without Cook, I don't rule out Missouri winning the game with Pine. But one thing is, I think Drew Pine was terrible against Auburn, terrible versus Alabama. He's had some games in the past. That kid went on the road and beat USC. His QBR was pretty good for the season that he was the quarterback for most of the year at Notre Dame. He's just had a weird career, but he's got some ability. That's why he's been at 3 pretty big places in terms of, Notre Dame, Missouri, Arizona State.
Yeah. Okay. Get you up some more Drew Pine stock.
You can buy it right now. You can buy it right now pretty cheap. I'm just saying that
you can get it cheap.
There's a lot of recency bias with how bad Drew Pine is. I mean, he was a lot better than this at Notre Dame. So let's see what happens.
No, because we've only seen this much of him, and it's all been bad.
It's all been bad. Lately, that's true. And it wasn't good at Arizona State either. I'm just saying 3 years ago at Notre Dame, he had there was some stat, I don't remember, but it's something like, well, anyway, it doesn't matter. But he played better when he was at Notre Dame.
Welcome to Locked On Bad Quarterbacks. Now I got to tell you about Game Time. What time is it? Y'all know it's Game Time because Game Time's the best. Y'all know I love it. I use it for everything. I've used it for Wisconsin game. If I go to the Oklahoma game, I'm going to use it for Oklahoma, and I might go to the Oklahoma game. We'll see what happens. But I've used it for college basketball, college baseball, NFL, World Series, everything. And because you know why I use it? Because it's the best, not because they sponsor us. If they quit sponsoring us, 3 months ago, I would have still used them probably 4 or 5 times since then because I believe in them. I mean,
it's not coming off my phone. It's not coming off my phone.
No, it's not. Mostly it's not coming off Jimmy's because he doesn't know how to remove apps. But for me, I know how to remove apps.
Do you know how hard it is to get an app on a flip phone?
So yeah, I'm not taking that off my phone because I love it. It's so easy. Go download that Game Time app. And if you use code Locked On College, get $20 off that first purchase. You can't beat that with a stick. So y'all go get some Game Time and get at me later with that big thank you, Luke. By the way, apropos of nothing, when you said apps, what are you thinking? Did you see the latest? What is it? Andy Samberg, Lonely Island or whatever, the sushi glory hole SNL short that they
Family
did.
Family show.
Well, no, but this is it. It's on Saturday Night Live.
It's on SNL. It's on SNL. No, I have not. I've seen some SNL this season, but not all of it.
All right, I'll send it to you. It's pretty funny. I mean, it's like some of the he's pretty creative.
He's very hit or miss for me, Samberg. I've seen him hilarious, and then I've seen him like not be funny at all for multiple hours at a time.
Yeah,
but he is, when he hits the home run,
it's a good one. It's a good one.
Yep.
All right. So recruiting. Alabama had a big weekend in recruiting. I know Jackson Cantwell, who is the top offensive line prospect in the country for next year out of Missouri, was at this game, and he seemed to really have a good time. The number 1 running back in the country for next year was at this game out of Florida. He seemed to have a really good time. So I think it was a big hit for everybody.
Yeah, it is a good environment in those home games at Alabama, even the games that aren't at night. It was a big crowd. I wouldn't say necessarily that the crowd was loud. I think there was some Tennessee loss hangover in the crowd a little bit, but it was still a big crowd and a good environment, and Alabama played well. See, I think that's the thing, that DeBoer has to sell to kids is, admittedly, there's going to be some trepidation going from Nick Saban to the new coach. DeBoer, now he can sell some level of success, and some players like what they see. And I think any recruit that was at the game and saw Alabama register a shutout over an SEC team, and when people think, oh, it's Missouri, that was Alabama's first shutout against an SEC team since 2020. I mean,
what's weird?
It's hard to do.
If we had scored that touchdown, like I think Ty Simpson should have, if he cuts to the left,
Yeah.
you know what that final score would have been? 41-0. You know what the score in 2020 against Mississippi State was? 41-0.
41-0. And again, this Missouri team again was ranked at the time we played them. I think they will end the season ranked. They started the year around the top 10. This wasn't that was a good team that Alabama beat. So I think these prospects that are in the stands, I think they're like, hey, you know what? DeBoer is going to be successful here. And I think that's a good thing. Now, those prospects probably won't hold Alabama to the same standard as so many Alabama fans do. But I think prospects watched Alabama and went, wow, I think DeBoer is going to be successful.
I do too. And I think recruiting's going to end up being great. I think it's going to continue to roll on and do well. I think we're going to need a good Iron Bowl. I think we need a really good Iron Bowl showing because really we only got two. College football goes by too fast. We've got 2 away games and 2 home games left. That's it.
It's crazy how fast the season flies.
All we do is sit around and project for next year. I mean, I was depressed today. I hate when Halloween comes around, not because my daughter's going to make me dress up like Cousin It, which she is. I don't mind doing that.
You're going to can you do the show as Cousin It?
I might. She did buy a remote control hand thing that like Adam's family. And I'm like, why do you even like the Adams family? It's like before my time.
You come to
the
the show
like every other Halloween person and be Taylor Swift.
You do the show as Cousin It, and I'll come masquerading as a football analyst.
I'll come as a podcast host who knows how to record. I'll come as a podcast host who doesn't know how to mute. All right. So what the heck were we talking about? College football just goes too fast. We only have 4 more games, Jimmy. That's not fair. It's not right. It's stupid. I hate when Halloween comes around. I really do, because that it signifies you've gone past the midway point.
You know what's also here's what's interesting, and I don't think we've really contemplated this. Or I know I haven't until very recently. Maybe all of you are way ahead of me, but I contemplated this the other. Championship weekend for years has been awesome. I mean, it's about who gets in the playoff, and there's major drama on that weekend because Friday night and Saturday decides who's in, and then Sunday morning we find out on Reese Davis's show Sunday morning who's actually in. This year, Luke, it's about, first of all, the most excitement will probably be from the Group of 5 championship games.
Yeah, because that one's getting in.
The Group of 5 championship games will actually be more exciting. Every team both teams playing for the SEC championship will be in. Both teams playing for the Big Ten championship will be in. Possibly both teams playing for the Big 12 and ACC will be in. That's more possible, but not definitive. And all we're talking about with those Power 4 things is seeding. And here's something that I further believe. I don't think this will be a written rule, but I'm pretty adamant that this is how it's going to work, Luke. I don't think anyone is going to lose their spot in the playoff over what happens championship weekend. In other words, if you play on championship weekend and lose, and you were in the field before the game, a loss on that Saturday, they're not going to knock somebody out of the field who loses on Saturday in favor of someone that was sitting at home watching. I don't think they're going to do that. And that makes the championship games even less. Again, the Power 4 games are about seeding. The Group of 5 games will be about, okay, which one of you little dudes is getting in? And it's still going to be good, and we're still going to watch all of it. I'm just saying it's radically toned down to me when you're talking about seeding and not who's in and who's out.
Yeah. We have a lot of time to talk about that. Meanwhile, I'm going to just be depressed. I just realized we only got 4 regular season games left for Alabama.
And one of them's Mercer, and I rank them. I'm sure you do too. At LSU is the toughest. At Oklahoma is the second toughest. Auburn is third, and Mercer's fourth.
I will flip-flop Auburn and Oklahoma. I think Auburn could go on a bit of a run now that they finally got a win under their belt. I still don't think they're very good.
For me, it's about home and away.
Down last night.
For me, it's about home and away. Gotcha. If they were both home or both away, I might rank them differently. But
Yeah.
I think at Oklahoma makes it
And
tougher.
Oklahoma did beat Auburn. I mean, that should count for something.
I think, yeah, at Oklahoma to me is tougher than Auburn at home. And if it was at Auburn and Oklahoma in Tuscaloosa, I'd probably rank it the other way.
And if we were playing Auburn at Oklahoma, I don't know what I'd do. I wouldn't go to it. But all right, that's
might be an easier place to win.
That's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.